All right, g'day, hi, and welcome. All right, today I got an interesting concept of a video. In this corner, the thunderous 5-string bass, and in this corner, the thunderous 8-string guitar. So, 8-string guitar versus 6-string bass. I thought I just said a 5-string bass, right? Well, actually, this video is going to be more about uh, the problems you have with your 5-string is probably the same problems you have with your 8-string. And that is, they're not really problems. They're just things you got, hurdles that kind of slowly stunt the instruments. And for example, this one, the scale length is 34, which is a normal bass scale for like a 4-string, right? And this is 26 and a half, which is a baritone for a guitar. So normal guitars would be 25 and a half or 24 and 3/4 scale length. So what is this problem? Well, the problem is, and I don't know if it could be solved with a 6-string bass, but I think the 6-string bass they typically have longer scales. So in other words, the 5-string bass, I think, needs to have a longer scale length. Because when you're playing the 5-string, what I've noticed now, I've had this Ibanez Geo bass, which is a nice little bass. You know, it's budget bass, right? It's my second bass that I've owned, and I've played some really nice basses over the years over the years. My ear is clogged today, so I hate that. So if I sound a little funny, it's not that I have a cold. It's just I can only kind of hear out of this ear today, not that one. But anyway, not relevant to the video. But over the years, I've played some really nice bass. I've had some really good bass players that I've worked with back in the day and whatever. They had like, whatever the state of the art was back then. So I got a good idea of what makes a good bass and what makes an okay bass. And pretty much the good thing about basses is that you can make them all work. And you can make them work fairly well. Even if the bass is cheap, inexpensive, because like a cheap bass versus an inexpensive bass is not the same thing. Inexpensive is like this. This is an inexpensive bass. Its quality is, whatever. But the problem with a cheaper or inexpensive bass is they tend to buzz a lot more. And that's the first thing I noticed with this thing is it buzzes an awful lot, which you'll notice on a more inexpensive bass. Now, this guitar is what you'd call like the bottom rung of a professional guitar. So it plays pretty darn good, but it does buzz a little bit more. The fretwork isn't quite there. But if the fretwork was there, this thing would be pretty, same with that. If the fretwork were better on both instruments, be better. But even before the fretwork, the scale length. So I did a full tabletop of this when I bought the guitar, and it's now about a year later that I've had the 8-string, and I play it quite daily. Maybe not every day, but probably every other day. I go through my cycle of my guitars. I was recently just playing my 11-string back there. Yeah, it's got an extra tuning peg on it. I don't know why. It's an 11-string guitar now. Not that I broke a string, it's just that the high G won't intonate, so I just removed it. So I can keep that 12 string in tune. But other issues for other times for that. So what I've noticed in the year of playing the 8-string, and in comparison to playing my 6-string guitars for, look over my head there. There's a couple of them on there. Is that the scale length is what holds back the 8-string a little bit. I think 7-string is because I'm not experiencing the same problems with the 7-string, where the 7-string, that low B is still proper tension even with a 26.5-inch scale length. Where on this, that low F sharp seems to throw the rig out by you don't have enough tension on the low F sharp, which takes tension off the B, but then it puts tension on the high B and the high E. So it feels like you're playing an acoustic guitar kind of thing. But it is, a heavy gauge, 10 gauge strings on there, 10 to 74, I believe. So the problem you run in there is when you're playing in the mix or playing really fast, things get really muddy. That's the only real critique I have of this guitar. The buzzing and the B and the low F sharp don't quite have enough tension on them to get that. They sound more like a drone, like a bass, than they do like a sharp guitar note, right? Where with the bass here, with its scale length on the 5 string, um, that 34-inch scale length, your E, your A, your D, and your G are pretty much normal tension, but the low B doesn't quite have enough tension on it. Now there is a way to put more tension on there, but to keep them intonated, that's where you run into the problem. So you can have enough tension, or you can be intonated, but you can't quite get both. So I think the 5 string needs to have a longer scale length to get the proper tension on the low B. So even if you had a little bit more tension on the G, I think that would be fine. I think that wouldn't really, because it's not like a soloing string, right? So if you had a little bit more tension on the G, you could probably live with it, but your bass would sound a lot more. It would be a lot more articulate. You would hear a lot more notes popping out. So the next question becomes, what's a better investment? If you're going from not a musician's point of view, but more like a songwriter's point of view. Because if you don't understand the relationship with the bass and the guitar, and how important the bass is to really boost the sounds of the guitar, you're probably not going to get the most out of it when you record. What I notice is with the bass, the bass is kind of a strange instrument where everybody wants the bass to sit in the background, right? But the bass is also like if you think of the drums as the foundation, I don't see the bass as the foundation of a song anymore. I see it more like the crazy glue or that foam, that RV foam that goes into and fills up all the holes and cracks. And I see the bass more like that than, okay, it's just following, backing the drums, because it does glue the drum rhythm section to the guitar section rhythm or leads, right? So the bass is kind of the instrument that sews it all together. So that kind of brings you back to, is it worth it to have an 8-string guitar, maybe as mainly the rhythm guitar player, and a 5-string or a 6-string bass? Or would a 6-string bass or 5-string bass just kind of delete the need for the 8-string? I don't think it does, in a sense, because whatever you play on your 6-string guitar, like say you play a nice low B chord here. Well, this guitar is down tuned, but if you're playing like a nice B chord on your guitar, and the bass is just playing on the one B note or the open B, you can get a different dynamic of sound, where if you just chugging away on that low B while you're playing your heavy B chord there, it'll just back the guitar, and it'll kind of stay. It'll thicken it out, but it'll stay there. But now you add a B power chord on that 5-string bass from the low B, and you maybe go up to octave. Now you got a mid-range punch out there that widens out the song, if you understand what I'm saying there, while you're still pounding away on that B chord down here, right? Or if you really, really want to kind of thin out the song, you could just play one note on an octave up on the B, or maybe like some sort of a little interval or something, to really change the entire dynamic of how that B chord is going to come out to the audience from the guitar. And the bass has the ability to do that. It has the ability to take a simple power chord and change it with intervals, one note, a full chord, an open note, and you can get a lot out of your bass player if he understands to be somewhere different than you're at. So that, sometimes you just want to go pedal to the metal. Everybody's playing on the same note, and it sounds good, but it'll thicken that note, but everything else sounds, it takes away the dynamic of the song. It takes away whatever. And, I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. So, let's see how we're for time. Oh yeah. So anyway, there's gonna be multiple parts of this. Okay, so here's the H string, standard tuning, and I'm just a B. Sounds pretty heavy, right? I'll grab the flying B. Again, I know they're not plugged in, but same chord. It's a B, right? Same chord. Same note. Now, I could do that, or I could do, I'll use a pick just to kind of, right? And you can see how, if you were to add all three of those chords in one song, how wide that would sound. Like that would be the widest sounding B chord you ever heard in your life. So it comes back to is the H string really, like you got your B chord flying away on the flying B here. And I'm just using that chord as one example, just to keep things simple. Try not to bang everything, scratch up all my beautiful guitars. So that bass can really widen out that chord or accent